Hi, welcome to Fighting Talk. I'm Kudo Mal. I'm on a mission to spread the news of Kudo in the UK, but also the benefits of being a martial artist. This time on Fighting Talk, I have the pleasure of announcing we are talking to Paul Cale. There is no intro that will give justice to Paul Cale. Take a look at this.
What I think of as violence has changed throughout my life. When people talk about a sport being violent, I can't even associate the word with violence. People might say, fighting in a cage, mixed martial arts is violent. People are punching each other, kicking each other, choking each other. There's a referee there. It's not violent at all. We heard an explosion. And we saw it and we thought, well, we better go investigate. Then we heard another explosion. He stepped on an IED, which blew him apart. And by the time we got there, his father's picking his son up. His son's children are there. We just spent the day picking up pieces of human flesh, and we got a body bag and we'd start collecting pieces of body so that they could bury their son that night because of Islamic religion. And then that night, they set the grave up and stones, and then the mother was just wailing at night time. And so all you could hear at night was her wailing at the grave.
Hey, Paul.
Hello. Hey, how are you, Mal?
How are you? You okay?
Yeah, good.
Good to meet you.
Same. That was nice and simple.
Okay.
So you got a coffee. Is it morning? It must be morning there.
No, this is Britain. This is tea.
Ah, tea. Of course.
It's got to be tea.
Of course.
Tea. Yes.
Yeah, we had a massive Italian influx into Australia after World War II, and the biggest influx of Italians in the world after the war was Argentina and Melbourne, Australia. I don't know if you know that.
No.
So, that's a fact, and that's why Australians are so fanatical about their coffee.
Really?
So we now, I think, officially have the biggest coffee culture in the world.
Yeah, already.
Yeah,
I get on coffee and I start. Believe me, that's why I won't drink coffee before I start talking to someone, because you won't get a word in.
Because you just, I can't move until I drink, a couple of coffees.
All right, so we've already started, but this is Paul Cale. Thanks for joining me, Paul. This is a real honour for me, and I'm sure everybody's going to love what we do. We are on the same level, and I don't mind swearing in this. If you want to swear, you go ahead, because I'm not going to cut it out.
Well, I'm Australian, mate. It's bound to happen.
Just in case I don't manage to cut it in, we were just talking over Peter from Liverpool, and we're just talking about Peter's inability to talk English because he's got a Scouser accent.
He invented the language, and did a bit of a chat in India at the World Cup for Kudo, and the first thing I followed him, and the first thing I said is, mate, nobody understood a word you said. Like, you invented the language, and seriously, we're all here just wondering what he said. And people are asking me to translate, and it's like, I don't know. It's a different English.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to tell you what we. Great people. Oh yeah, they're fab. I love the guys in Liverpool.
And you're in Wales.
I'm in Wales. Yes, we won't talk about what we do.
I live in the new South Wales.
Right.
Yeah. We're all Welshmen.
That's right.
Then you improve.
But you haven't got as many sheep, right? You haven't got no sheep.
Oh, we got sheep. Yeah, we got sheep. Not like New Zealand, but we got sheep.
Yeah. That's what I don't want to go. Anyway, moving on. So, Paul, I asked you to have a chat, really, because I've started seeing things online, really, that where you've got people who are potentially semi-contact fighters, and then they start looking for ways of bringing in money. So they started kind of teaching, self-defense or knife defense and all those sorts of things. So we'll get back onto that. But for anybody that don't know you, Paul, can you just give us a little bit of a background? I used a picture of all of your array of black belts, which is quite spectacular on the advert. Yeah. Well, what are you doing now?
Okay, well, what am I doing now?
Yeah.
Right now, I'm the CEO of a defense and aerospace company.
Right.
So we run tactical training, tactical for deployment for troops to Afghanistan, driver training. We're the first company to do that in Australia. That's a very common thing in the United States, not in Australia. But we do that, and also now we're linked in with some stuff with Airbus. Airbus. Right? Doing some stuff there with their helicopter side of the house. And our company also, we have what's called Kinetic XR, which is our VR side of the house. Yeah. So military style training. We also work with police departments in Australia, and we have a sort of, I guess, a law enforcement element to what we do as well. Yeah. We predominantly work with South Australian Tactical Police, right. And now there's other territories and states that are coming on board there. Yeah. And that's all just based on what people have asked, you know, like it wasn't my intention. When I first left the military, I left the Australian Army. I ended up at the Australian Institute of Sport. Initially, I was moving to the United States. I was going to be working in the US. And then I got asked if I'd be interested in helping set up the Olympic Combat Center for Olympic combat sports at the Australian Institute of Sport, which is, you know, internationally renowned institute. And I thought, well, that's quite unique and different too. I felt like something different. So I did that, thinking that I'll end up in the US later on. And then the Australian Army asked me if I'd be interested in doing some stuff with them, which I did. And then police, and it just kept sort of moving forward. And then, and so that's sort of how that worked. And then the Australian Army wanted to expand on the work I did for Special Forces. And I did that for infantry. And then the G7, basically the forces commander for training for the Australian Army, decided like he wanted a program across the whole Australian Army. So I've been working on that. So when you look at, you know, and so I haven't left Australia. I've been sort of caught up in that. But in actual fact, I've been caught up with a few things with the English Army. So your chief of staff, I think it was out in Brisbane just before the virus kicked in. Yeah. And there's been a lot of to and fro with the English Army as well. Right. And so that's what I'm currently doing. Yeah. Yeah. And then you wanted something before that? Yeah, just, I mean, I suppose I put a picture of all of those belts. Now, I recognized some of them. You know, there was a BJJ black belt there. There was a Kudo black belt, a Kyokushin black belt. So I suppose it'd probably take us the whole thing to go through all of them. But no, not at all. Yeah. I'll work through them. Basically, I've got, look, I did cross training, and I started martial arts in 1979. Yeah. And I cross trained by accident. So back in the 80s in Australia, through the 80s and into the 90s, we didn't have full-time studios like the US. Right. So we had clubs, and I think England was very similar. Yeah. And so a club, you would train Monday night and say Wednesday night. Yeah, yeah. And I was fanatical about martial arts. So if my club, say Taekwondo, which is what I started with, trained Monday night and Wednesday night, I went and did Judo Tuesday night and Thursday night. Right. So it's just by accident. Yeah, I just wanted to train. And then I thought, well, I can't do a striking art because, you know, I'll confuse myself. You know, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. So I'll confuse myself. So I thought, okay, do a throwing art. And that's how it worked. And then if we moved and there was no judo club, I'll go, okay, well, what's Aikido? I'll go do Aikido. Yeah. And then I joined the army. Oh, you got posted. Okay, they don't have Aikikai, they have Yoshinkan. Okay, I'll do Yoshinkan. So I ended up collecting black belts through just wanting to train all the time. Right, so how people now would be at one club training every night. Yeah. I was at multiple clubs. Yeah. But back then that was taboo. So I had to keep it quiet. There was no I was going to say, I mean, that was not the done thing. I can't remember. No, it was not the done thing. And there was only one time I suffered for it, is that my Taekwondo instructor found out, and I took a little bit of a beating, you know, sparring session. Yeah. Look, he was a nice guy. It's just that that's what you did back then.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was that. And then I sort of, I would, you know, like Kyokushin, for instance, you know, all of a sudden some people kick me to the legs, and I'm like, what the hell is this? You know? And so, you know, you got to understand the time. It's hard for people to understand. There was no internet. There was videos that, you know, you watch martial art videos on VHS or Beta, you know, that sort of thing.
The unpopular one.
And that was it. Yeah. And you know, and you just got in there and looked into it. And I just wanted to learn how to fight. So how did I get involved in BJJ? Look, I did judo. And so I just thought, oh, well, judo is good enough, and it teaches me this and that. And then I watched the early UFCs, and what's this Gracie Jiu-Jitsu? And then I got to meet Jean-Jacques Machado when in his first seminar in Australia, which I think was 93 or 94.
Right.
And that's how I got involved in that. And it just goes on and on. And then, okay, so that's how I started doing lots of martial arts. And then in 1987, I joined the Australian Army because I wanted to learn about modern warfare. And then when I was in the Army, I thought, well, Special Forces would be the way to go. And, you know, either go to Special Air Service Regiment or to Australian Commandos, or, you know, and it just went like that. And that's pretty much how it happened. So
well, I mean, that's a great lead in for me, because there was like three elements, I guess, that when I talk to people, they often say, well, what's the difference between a martial art and a combat sport? So sport's got to be play, right? Whereas in a martial art's the real deal. And then those that do the combat sport, they'll say, well, what's the difference between that and actual combat? You know, so whether that be the street and I think the street, again, is much different than, you know, what you would have been involved with. So, I mean, I don't like to put any of those things down, because part of my journey, I've been obviously involved in those things, and I found my home within the Kudo organization internationally, but I found my home here better in our own dojo, because we've got all these elements going on. So we got some people who are just there for the art, and some people that want to compete, and those that want to take it full. So, you know, I don't know whether you want to, it's just your opinion on those things. What's the difference between sort of a martial art and a combat sport, say, for instance, at the start?
Well, now, just so you know, I'm going to cough every now and again, because I've been coughing ever since my last deployment to Afghanistan. Right. So it's not COVID-19. Right. Okay, I don't want anyone to think that they're going to spray through the monitor or anything like that. I've just got this agitated throat that just keeps coughing.
Temperature.
So that's, no temperature, no nothing. Just this lousy cough. I'm almost have to explain myself to people, because, you know, I'm in a line also, and I do this cough, and it's like, I don't have COVID-19.
And you don't have a queue either.
No, I don't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. So, okay, so what's the difference? You know, what's really interesting is my opinion always changes over time.
Yeah.
You know, you see and you're exposed to different things. So a combat sport, I find, if you look at, say, Kodokan Judo, and you look at, say, Kyokushin Karate, let's look at those two.
Yeah.
A combat sport is something that exposes people to the idea of the particular martial art, but it falls short in the complete gambit or complete philosophy of that art. So if you look at Kodokan Judo, there is a lot to the Kodokan.
Yeah.
Now, if you base Kodokan Judo on Olympic Judo, the sport, you are missing out on a lot of stuff, because you've got Kosen Judo that has a huge amount of groundwork, a different rule set for the game. But they're part of that's part of Judo, right? You have the katas of Judo. You have the forbidden techniques of Judo, which once upon a time were legal. You know, once upon a time, there was a lot of techniques we could do in Judo, including grabbing legs and all that. And there was techniques that became, you know, that's dangerous. People get busted up, so they got rid of them. And then the Olympics, they decided recently, in recent history, that, you know, grabbing the legs, we're not doing that anymore, because we want to see Judo look a certain way. So that disappeared. Now, the thing is, right, it's trying to create a sport, and sport Aikido is another example, say Tamiki Aikido. You're trying to create something that shows off the art. Kyokushin, same. Like what showed off the art for Kyokushin is hitting each other. But then people realized, you know what, you're not going to die if you get hit to the face, because, you know, MMA started showing people different things and things like that. But you're not going to have a whole bunch of competitors. You're going to have a few competitors and a whole bunch of spectators. If you want a whole bunch of competitors, then Kudo works well with the headgear. It's just the sport's there to develop instinctive behaviors and the attributes of competitive sport and it's very good. But there's always something that ends up missing. And what I learned with what we're doing with the Australian Defence Force, you know, we're starting combat sports. We don't want it to look like BJJ, like the Americans have done. We want it to look like with body armor and this. And then you realize body armor, you can actually grip. And a gi, you can never make a contact between thumb and finger, right? But with body armor, you make this contact. You can't strip that with a judo strip. And then you realize manipulating the arm, oh, that's a wrist lock. And you go, oh, now there's some Aikido stuff that's making sense. It's just every time you play around, some weird shit comes from the past. It says, this is why we did it 400 years ago, is because someone grabbed your armor. And you went, shit. You know, it just gets you to think a bit differently. So what we're doing with our sport is, you know, then we have the restrictions of what the Australian Army is willing to accept, the risk that it's willing to accept. So we have to work within it. So there's always something, but then it becomes popular. Like Kyokushin, knockdown became popular. And even though there was a lot of people saying, like Shukucho, you know, Zuma Takashi, hey, we, you know, Oyama, we need to be whacking each other in the head and doing locks. But people love knockdown. So why are you going to change it when you're popular because of your sport? So it actually, your sport can, you might be the founder, but the sport may take a life of its own. And judo, you know, Kodokan Judo, it's in the Olympics. So
just leave it there.
We don't want to muck around with that, even though, So it's a really interesting thing, you know, like, and look at BJJ. Even the Gracies are saying we don't like where sport jiu-jitsu is today. And it's forgetting about the Vale Tudo or the self-defense. It's like, well, bad luck, because you know what sport does? Sport takes things off in their own direction. So,
well, it's the thing for me. It was like, I was just, you know, when you were saying about the styles and things, you know, when I was at the dojo, I never really translated to. So you got Mal on the street that has to defend himself in his local community, and then you got Malice in the dojo, and these two people were very separate for a long time. I suppose, like when people talk about karate, it's kind of what the basics are, and fighting and kumite are completely different, and these sorts of things. And then when I found, the reason I found Kudo as a home was that these two people came together because of the headbutt. Because it was the first time.
Headbutt's a fantastic weapon.
I got kind of closed in nearly every fight I've ever had, and within seconds I'm just headbutting. You know, it was very successful. And then when I got into Kudo, I was in France. I've been mentioned in nearly every video I've done so far, but it was the first time I'd actually been in a place with a lot of guys that want to potentially hurt you in a nice way, you know. And headbutt every time, elbows, all the close quarter stuff, you know, was very, very effective. And without that bit of headgear, now I won't go to an MMA gym, and I'm not embarrassed to say that. I'm an amateur martial artist, and if I'm going to fight, I need there to be that fear of God in me that I'll just let rip. I don't want to get used to or desensitized to being hit. And I've had my nose broke so many times as well, you know. So it was like, but the thought, you know, I watched one of the videos where you were talking about your experiences in Afghanistan and things like that. You know, I just don't see combat sports being anywhere near, you know, what it would be like to be out on tour somewhere. And I suppose this is what I'm connecting with the mental health of it, because what we tend to see is these fantastic guys that have got a lot of potential in life, loads of skill, go out on tour, and then they come back very different people. And, you know, that for me is obviously tragic. I mean, you could say that they chose to do that, but, you know, people that are doing MMA, this is why I'm not embarrassed about it with Kudo. I like the head guard. I think it's a nice line to say this is still a sport. You know, you can learn some skills to defend yourself, you know, as realistic as you're going to get to a real fight with gear on, but it's not a real fight. And you're not going to be able to come up against somebody on the street and go to the floor and submit, or, you know, because there's going to be more people around. And I can't get my head around the difference between, you know, being someone that's taught these, because I joined the TAs, the Territorial Army, when I was young, and we did PT, and then I thought to myself, give me a gun, because if I have to use this stuff for real, I'm dead, you know. So it was a reason to give you a gun. But, you know, you've done all of these things, you've cross-trained, you're ahead of your time, you know, no doubt about it. I had to do naughty training and stuff, but my instructor was all right, because he let me box and he let me do the other things. But, you know, what's the difference really, would you say, between the jump between combat sports and actually being in the forces?
What it would be a learnt expectation of outcome. So in a sport, you understand what needs to be done to win.
Yeah.
So what does winning mean to you in combat? Now, when the two cross over, that's when you have a problem.
Right.
So, because you're not going to rise to the occasion, you're going to sink to your level of training. Right. So when if I'm in battle and I've got someone's arm, what I'm going to try and do, I'm trying to submit them. Now, if I break their arm and they're still screaming Allah Akbar trying to kill you, you're having a moment of clarity where you've reached your end state of your sport, and this thing is just beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's probably the number one realization that I had. And it affected me greatly, you know.
Do you forget your training then? You know, because like through fear, I remember as a kid, I forgot my training, you know?
No. What happens is you're doing your thing, and your body, like, you know, especially if a combat sport, combat sport, you fall into your game.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
It's what should I do now? I'm going to do this. Now, this is what lets down martial artists. If they don't pressure test something, they're likely to fall down into a John Wayne movie throwing a punch. It's whatever your brain says. So what happens is your brain looks for an experience. So, you know, when people say their life passed before them, what's happening when your life passes before you is your brain is Rolexing through an experience, not training. You could tell me the best thing you can do, Paul, is this. Means nothing to me because I'm Rolexing through experiences to find something similar that's going to save my life.
Yeah, that's a really good one, isn't it?
So what is happening is pressure tested training is the greatest experience, or street fighting or anything that's a pressure test. So forget about the term street fighting, just pressure testing. Now, whether it happened to be on the street or whether it happens to be on the competition floor, whatever it is, you're going to go, I need to grab you. And have a watch how many street fights where people are trying to grab people and throw them to the ground. Why? Because they're MMA guys. Do you see what I mean? Whereas you might say, you know what? You're not sitting this guy on the ground. Knock him the fuck out. Knock him out. But because there might be multiple people. Or arm yourself. Well, why didn't they arm themselves? Because that's not their game. The pressure's on now, and they're just dropping to their training. They're not. You don't make up the great solution. You just go Rolex. Oh, when someone threw punches at me, this is what I did. Okay. And that's how it plays out. And unless you give something extra and you pressure test it, it won't become part of your arsenal. So that's the most unique thing we do in the Australian Army now is we go, you've got a gun on you, you've got this metal helmet, you've got all this equipment. We're going to pressure test you, and we're going to teach you how to use this equipment and these weapons, even if it's not in the way that they're intended to be used by the manufacturer. You're going to take this chunk of metal and drive it through that person's face. And you're going to do it without thinking, and you can realize what you just did after the fact. And your team is going to react to this way, because like a game of rugby, we're going to teach you all how to work together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's relieving for me to think, as a combat martial artist, as a sports combat person, that I'm going to fall back into that. You know, I remember my first experience was actually, I started off in judo, and then I had a fantastic judo club, and I was made to go. You know, my dad was like, "You got to do this, you got to do this," because he wanted to do it. So it was kind of living through me and my brother. And when actually I had a fight, I kind of, and I mean, my karate training was much bigger now, so I'm talking twice the amount of time in karate, and I get in a fight, and I'm doing judo. You know, I've got a guy in a scaffold, and I hadn't done a scaffold for 7 years, so I totally understand what you mean about that. And
now the interesting thing is, was your karate pressure tested?
No, it wasn't. Not the same. No.
Correct.
No. Yeah.
So you are going to fall into your judo.
Yeah.
Because your judo is pressure tested for your sport.
Yeah. I mean, we were like, I went straight back to training, and I said to my instructor, I like this. I believe in everything you're doing, but I'm getting battered, you know, in school. And he had he checked his bag gloves, his really bad old leather bag gloves, you know, like Bruce Lee kind of cut-fingered ones. Yeah. And he had us smashing bells out of each other. You know, we're going back, our noses are hanging off, but we felt that we could defend ourselves. But again, next fight I had, that bit went very, very quickly. It wasn't like sparring, and I'm back to my judo again, you know. So it was crazy. Going back to, I was really interested in what you're saying about the forces part of it, because knowing that I'm going to fall back to a certain amount of sport element. What about if you
unless you've got something else,
right?
Unless you've got it's not so much the sport.
Yeah.
It's the pressure testing.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So if you've got something else there, if you've got something else, like for instance, I did a lot of bouncing for a long time. Typical martial artist instructor or martial art instructor. Mm-hmm. You know, you teach martial arts, it doesn't make ends meet, so you bounce as well. You know, that sort of thing. You know, so you just end up exposed to stuff. And you're the martial art instructor, we'll give you a crack. Yeah. You know, all that sort of stuff. But what I realized is pretty much from the first time I chose to defend myself, I got beaten a lot at school, you know, when I was young, right through until the day that I actually chose to defend myself was the last time I was ever beaten. Ever. Yeah. And it was horrendous. Like what I did was horrendous. Like that kid probably didn't deserve the punishment they got, but they got pent up years of beatings and they all just unleashed on this one kid. Yeah. But it was grab a hold and break balance and hit, break balance and hit. Yeah. Another reason I like Kudo, or I did Kyokushin with Sam Greco, who I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's a K1 fighter, Kyokushin, great, you know, very famous Kyokushin fighter. And, you know, just him thumping into you. And we, you know, him and people like Andy Hug and all them, they ended up in the 90s out of Kyokushin because they want to fight kickboxing K1. Yeah. And so Ayama said, well, you're either doing Kyokushin or you're out, right? Yeah. No worries. They're out, and they all end up being Sato Kokan. Now, so you join the instructor, you don't join the martial art. So when we stop being Kyokushin, guess what? You're Sato Kokan. But now you can grab the gi. Yeah. And you can pull them off balance. And I just loved grabbing gis, doing sabaki, which probably looks like Ashihara or Enshin karate, and breaking balance and whacking people. Yeah. And then, you know, I'd have Kyokushin guys still lay into me, be great. Oh, you're putting boxing gloves on now, and all of a sudden the Kyokushin guys, you know, you're now getting a bit of your own back. And you just, you know, that's where it all started. You just realize a few things, and then if you ever cement that on in a street fight, well, guess what? Your brain's that's the Rolex. Your brain says, you know, grab the dude, hit first. Like you're under threat, launch your attack. You just.
Well, the bits that have been infuriating to me is that those people, you know, where they're like I think quite often when someone says, I can tell when someone's at a fight, like real fights, because I you know, I remember taking a lot of damage to the head because in karate I had my head good posture, shoulders up, back straight, you know, keep breathe, and all these sorts of things. And they just put you right in the firing line when they came for real. So my chin was down, my hands were up, I'm anticipating nearly every time. And then someone would say, oh, you got too much weight on your front leg. That's because, like, again, I'm not talking knives that maybe you would have come up against. I'm talking little pen knives the kids have got on the street that are trying to stab you or cut you. And I'm realizing I've got to get everything I can away from that knife. And if it means putting my weight on my front leg, I'm going to do that. So these life experiences, but I don't go out teaching knife defenses, you know, and like there's people out there that would say, well, like you said about the bouncing, you're a martial artist, could show me a knife defense. And some of the things that are popping up online, you know, I can be critical to Jesse Enkamp, but you know, generally his stuff's very good. He's a very good martial artist for the competition's high level. The things I would have never got to, you know, I tried, I failed. I was too rough around the edges for that type of stuff, you know, and I could never get there. But when someone like that starts teaching knife defenses for the street, it really kind of pushed me to the point of thinking, well, what happens if I want to learn, right? I don't live in London. I live in Wales. It's pretty nice here. We get very little knife problems. London, they got big problems. So if someone wants to learn how to defend themselves from a knife, how do they go about finding out that thing without joining the forces? You know, how should they vet someone? Because I could say, you know, I did a little bit of time in the Territorial Army, started a session on a Wednesday evening teaching knife defenses. You know what? And what do you look for in someone who actually got the skill to be able to defend themselves?
Okay, well, it's an interesting one because it's a good question, and let me sort of go off on a bit of a tangent with it.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
it's finding people that have done it or exposed to it, or exposed to people that have done it. And I mean, probably first degree, you know, like the person who has done it is giving you the information you need.
Yeah.
Now, why do I say that? Look at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Why is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu effective on the ground? Now, we could say because it's just so much time spent pressure testing. You know, whether you drill, do techniques, however it looks, in the end, you're pressure testing.
Yeah.
And you're developing concepts and you're applying concepts. Okay. And then what disappoints me with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm going to get plenty of backlash, but just hear what I'm saying, is that if you do stand up and you do self-defense and it's techniques and it's choreographed and it's not pressure tested, then you are doing what every other martial art did, pretending to do ground fighting.
Yeah.
So it's what makes jiu-jitsu good is the way they go about their ground fighting. What makes judo good is the way they go about their tachiwaza as well as their neiwaza. What makes Thai boxing good is free play, elbows, striking, grappling, you know. It's so you got to say to yourself, okay, then we need to have a knife in play, not an actual blade, but a knife, and then we can have a shock knife to create stress. Whatever it is, you know, how do I pressure test it? And this is the hard thing. The hard thing about teaching combat is that you are trying to teach people about injury and damage or killing without injuring, damage, or killing anyone.
Yeah.
Now, if you said to me, Paul, teach me how to fly a helicopter, whatever, eventually I'm going to sit next to you and we're going to fly the helicopter.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, yeah, you're doing well, Mal. Look, now do this with a stick. No, don't do that. But combat, it's like, no, I'm going to teach you, but we can't, you know, we can shoot a target, or we can use paint for opposing force, or we can use blanks. We can never just kill people.
No.
Not in training. So we have to somehow, and what I'm learning is it's a mixture. It's not one answer. It's almost like, look at the old Japanese martial arts like Yagu Shinkage Ryu and Katori Shinto Ryu. They call themselves Heiho, martial strategy. It's the number one thing lacking from modern martial arts is the strategy.
tactics. Let's say tactics, right?
Right. Okay.
And they're all about, you know, they'll use a shinai, you know, a bamboo sword. And it was actually the Yagu Shinkage Ryu that created the bamboo sword inside the leather. And they'll use a bokken, a wooden sword, and they'll use a sword.
Yeah.
Our armies do that today. We use live rounds. Yeah. Then we do opposed training with man-marking munition, you know, paint. Then we'll do blank ammunition. Same. Yeah. It's the exposure to the different elements that create the complete picture of your experience. And martial arts need to be the same. It's not one answer. No one has the one answer. No. It's multiple answers. Yeah. Then what do we do about mental well-being for people that are actually involved in it? So a lot of people are like, how do I prepare for combat? Yeah. Well, for me, Budo is about how do I calm myself after combat. Yeah. It's just so many layers to this. It's
a lot of time you don't know you're in conflict. You know, like this year's been the hardest year of my life because my life's been spinning for so many years, and then all of a sudden I stop and I've got to like go, actually, do you know what? I've been in a state of trauma or a state of, you know, anxiety for so long that actually when you've stepped out there, you didn't realize you were in it. You know, I suppose that's the bit that I don't like about, and there's less clubs around now, you know, the dojos, because there's a lot of combat, there's the internet, it's all those sorts of things. And you haven't got people saying, no, if you hit the nose, they die, and I can't possibly do this because I would kill the person.
You do, but, you know, it's like, they're getting found out. They're getting found out. It's not as many, or there's not as many people are taken by it. You know, more kids or more people that are caught up in some sort of fantasy. You know, the simple fact, and I'll say this to your group, I'll say one thing, because I'm into a lot of different martial arts, and they all have elements that are really interesting to me, right? Yeah. But I'll tell you this: if you don't touch someone, you're not going to hurt someone. Yeah. So if you're doing something that's no touch, you're doing complete and utter bullshit. Yeah. Simple as that. You're caught up in a cult. Yeah. And it's crap. Now, so, you know, and this is why I try to tell Aikido people, do you like Aikido? Yeah, I like a bunch of stuff around Aikido. But by the way, you're your own worst enemy. Yeah. Because as soon as you allow someone to do some weird shit, you are destroying yourself. You are killing yourself from what you're originally doing with. Now, I was lucky enough to meet Kondo Sensei, he's still alive today, with Daido Juku, Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. And now I met him in 1991 when I went and trained in Japan with Gozo Shioda in Yoshinkan. And he hurt me. Like, he wanted to show me how off the mark Aikido was. And he hurt me. Like, to this day, I remember the pain that man put me through. And he did it in a nice way, like whatever. Do. But he was showing me, like, this is a cushion. This is used because, you know, we teach people and the nature of the style. And then when you prove yourself someone, you know, instead of pushing the face back, you're going through the throat. But you're doing the same action, but your target's slightly different. It's a cushion. And instead of letting someone escape that, you just lock that in and you bust it. And it's like, I'm feeling that. Like, I get it. This hurts me a lot. Yeah. And you know, and so many. There must be so many frustrated, great martial artists out there watching their art just being abused by clowns and dojos. And I think the same's going to happen to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There's so much stuff out there called, you know, crazy Jiu-Jitsu and stuff. It's just frankly doesn't follow the process, because it's even the point system in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to get you in the position to throw strikes. And because you can't throw strikes, they give you points. And then the sport itself creates this crazy advantage and this, and people think it's all about winning. So it really doesn't matter how I play the game. And then, well, let's get rid of that and do submission only. And now we're in the crap like 50-50 guard, where it's like, I'm not going to lay on the ground looking at your legs in these weird positions. It's like, you know, like leg locks. I watched a Russian MMA guy literally stand there and have his leg broken, getting locked. He couldn't move because he's, you know, it's probably kicking around the internet, this thing. And his leg was getting broken. Yeah. And after his leg got broken, he didn't tap, so he didn't lose. He spun around and choked the guy out. Really? Because his leg was no longer holding him back. It broke. So now he could turn around as his legs the opposite way and choke the guy out. And it's like, understand what that means. Understand that in combat, you're busting my leg. I'll accept my leg going because I'm not going to let you kill me.
Yeah.
And that can go, but I'm killing you. Like,
well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, when like, for me, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the guys, I'm quite happy for my students. Or I bring in some of the best in the year. There's a guy I really rate called Craig Ewers. Like, you know, he's a phenomenal guy. You know, it's quite hard when you're getting older and you find someone younger that's just so much better than you'd ever be. You know, so I bring him in, he does that. But like for me, again, with the Kudo is the closest thing for me that's good, because I know that it still keeps me handy with the strikes, keeps the headbutt involved, the elbows and all the rest of it. And I don't like spending time on the ground. You know, I will go to the ground, I'll fight on the ground, but that's a thing. I tell all my students this, but that one's false from being kicked when I was on the ground. You know, I had this side of my head, almost my jaw nearly crushed from being stamped on. You know, it's just not the place to be. You know, how does that kind of, you know, when you're teaching guys, and again, I'm guessing at this, I got no idea, but you know, is the ground's got to be a place that somebody that is armed is going to be favorable compared to that. But if somebody goes down, are you teaching people to go to the ground to fight? You know, like, are you teaching people sort of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu type style or Jiu-Jitsu style?
Well, it depends. Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? Yes.
Or is it like Kudo, you know, you go to the ground, finish them and get back up and go again, sort of thing?
No, I don't. I find everyone's got their own little, people have preconceived expectations.
Yeah.
So it's really weird because I've got a reasonable amount of seniority in a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
So whether I've been exposed to some really high level stuff in a particular martial art because of the nature of my work, or, you know, my experience is, you know, I've got many decades experience or whatever. Yeah. It's really odd because I've got people asking me to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu seminars. Now, the crowd's a BJJ crowd. So it's going to be, I go, okay, it's going to be BJJ oriented. Then I go, hey, what do you guys want to look at? Oh, we'd love to look at the takedowns. You got, you know, you make takedowns understandable. Do you know why? Because I talk to you as a BJJ guy. Right. So I talk in BJJ language about a takedown. So I might talk to you about sacrifice throws and use sweeping concepts because that's what BJJ understand. Yeah. And I'll talk to you about osotagaris and certain throws as passing concepts. Right, so you understand. Yeah. I speak your language. You're Welsh. So obviously I'm speaking Welsh. Right? Things
so
like
we can't speak Welsh either.
Yeah. You know, so it's that kind of thing. And then if I'm with karate guys, then I'm going to put it in a karate context. And I guess the martial arts are like languages. Don't forget what they were created for. They're created for communication.
Yeah.
So don't get caught up in the language. Yeah. Like, well, you know, hey, whoa. You know, you're stuffing up the French language. Look, if you're into perfect French, then do perfect French. But I just want to communicate with you. Yeah. So if you're French, I'm really interested in speaking French. Yeah. So I don't feel that it's all one-way traffic. I want to understand how you think.
Yeah.
So I see martial arts as your language. What's your language? Yeah. But your end state is communication. Combat's the same. You know, your end state is to kill the enemy or to capture someone or whatever. Yeah. So don't get caught up in the way we do it. Yeah. Understand end states, but the way we do it is where you come from when I talk to you. You say, hey, I do Kudo. Paul, can you come and do a seminar for me? No worries. What are you into? Kudo. Sweet. That's the language I'm going to speak to you. Yeah. So even if I'm going to start talking about a knife, I'll put it in a Kudo context. Yeah. Because I want you to use your tools and your language to understand a different end state.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's all it is.
Well, there's I interviewed Alexei Kononenko. He's become a really good friend.
A very good friend. Yes. And I love Alexei.
You know, he's a no bullshit type character. You know, whether that's kind of based on Kudo and you being in the martial art, you know, because he is Kudo, right? He's been it since the beginning. So
quintessential Kudo, yes.
Yeah, and I questioned him on the Semi Schultz fight, and you know, he thought, I mean, the guy looks like he's on stilts in the fight, you know, and you can, people always could say, oh, look how big he is, you know, he doesn't move so well, he's robotic and stuff. But when you've got a man mountain in front of you, you know, I'd said to him, and I wasn't expecting him to say that he was frightened. I mean, I expect everybody to say that, but knowing Alexei, he just has this calmness about him. I just thought he'd probably say that he wasn't scared, but he kind of said, I was scared, but it's just another day at the office. So for me, that's like what you say, the conditioned response, isn't it? But you've got a guy that, you know, is 5 foot something compared to a guy that's a hell of a lot bigger. And quite often we say when it comes to things like Kudo or maybe MMA, it's the closest thing you're going to get to a real fight, right? And, you know, Alexei's fight, he had to move. He really had to move. And, you know, he was chased off the mat a number of times, wasn't he? So it's when I think doesn't it get to a stage? I mean, you're a tall guy, right? How tall are you?
I'm almost about 6'3".
6'3", right?
1 meter 90. What are you using over there? You guys imperial or your
feet? Yeah,
metric?
Feet. I'm 5'9" and a half.
Okay.
And I keep that half measurement in everything I measure, right? So
yeah, okay, no worries.
So,
well,
you know,
see, we used to have the imperial system, but then we switched to metric. So,
okay.
You know, my mum always, you know, used, you know, your 11 stone and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah. So 1 meter 90, 6'3", I think it is.
So I mean, you've got to have, surely, like when you're doing. Do you teach? Because like when I teach, I try.
Yeah, but you got to understand, I'm in heavyweight category.
Yeah.
So I'm a little guy in heavyweight.
Yeah.
Like if you look at my fights,
you know,
I'm the smallest guy in the category. I'm like a Fedor. I'm the Fedor, you know, walking out there going, oh, good. You've got to be 5 kilos too heavy to be in any other category. You're in a heavyweight category. And the other dude comes out who's a steroid munching monster who's 20 kilos heavier than me. So, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. I thought it was great that, you know, when there was an open weight, and I think that's what I love about Alexei's kind of fighting history, that he fought in the open weight, and that's how you get respect in Japan, right? You know, it's just everybody likes the underdog, but you know, if that was a real fight and Alexei had to fight Semi Schultz for real, you know, obviously there's rules in Kudo, like anything, every system, but very little rules, because there is very little rules, but there are rules. And like you were saying, it's kind of how do you get the job done? You know, if you were to advise, if that was like, right, you know, head guard off, gi top off, so they got nothing to grab, and Semi's going to fight Alexei, what would Alexei have to do to make it more efficient? To make, you know, if it had to be a fight to the death, does he have to run to get his gun, or do you what do you have strategies?
No. Look, your primary weapon is whatever's in your hand.
Right.
Now, if your gun's hanging off your chest rig or is in your holster, it is not your primary weapon.
Right.
And the number one thing that lets police down, or let's say police, is when you see them trying to get space and their weapon. And really what they need to do is close and use their hands to open up space and then access their weapon.
Right.
And that's probably the number one thing that, and you're starting to see a lot of that. I mean, I did a lot of that in the US in like 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to the US and doing a heap of instruction and stuff.
Yeah.
And now it's becoming a thing in the movies. And again, they're stuffing it up in the movies. Obviously, it's you know, John Wick wants to have a gun and do this and do that and shoot you at the same time, but it's a movie still. So it's like a martial art movie. But now this concept of extreme close shooting and these things that we were involved with, that we started teaching around the world, it's now becoming, you know, off it goes on tangents. And you just think, again, I just go, well, that makes sense. You've got to make a movie. It needs to be entertaining. Like,
do you like the John Wick?
Everyone, no, I don't. There's just too much killing. Like, it's just like, I know there's an array of things going on, but I guess I like the concept of weaponized martial arts, because that's what I've been advocating for so long. But it's just too out of control. What's a good example? Collateral's a good example. Yeah, that's an excellent example. Very, very good. Ahead of its time. There are some great examples, but I'm more into movies like Heat and Collateral and things like that. It's very clever the way it's done. Just non-stop, carnage for the sake of carnage is not my thing.
So I like it to be a little bit smart. People on, in the forces, and it's kind of, you don't ask someone, oh, have you killed someone? Or I suppose in the army, I would take that as, depend on what position they are in the army, whether they would have been frontline or not. But, I suppose seeing, because I like the John Wick films, I do, because it's just, nothing, as a martial artist, you're going, that's that, or he didn't do that very well, or he did, oh my God, he did, for an actor, that's pretty spectacular. But the difference between having to kill somebody, like, we're not in James Bond, judo chop, they fall on the floor, they don't get back up again. I think movies have moved on for violence, but is it anywhere near that?
Well, no, you don't do perfect, crisp technique. You do tactics, and it's at night time, or it's, or nothing sort of goes. It's like, if you're fighting, the best thing to do if you're a combat sports person is to fight. If you can fight without a preconceived idea of how this fight's going to go, maybe just a mental concept of, I'm not going to take a step back, or these are the things I want out of this fight. Yeah. And your body reacts to things. Yeah. That's what you want out of your combat sport. Yeah. If you can get yourself to that point where you're not worried about anything, you're just going, you know what? I will not stop fighting. I will not go down without a fight. And I'm looking for these following things. You are preparing yourself for real combat. You are getting yourself to a point, because we'll do a whole bunch of stuff, shooting, whatever it is. Everything is about just keep changing it, keep making the environment different. Same skill set, different environment. Yeah. Change it. And then when there's a impasse, righto, how do we get through that impasse? What creates a solution? And that becomes the team solution. So then you're best prepared for the unknown, because that's what you're going into. Yeah. The reason that fighting is such a thing, one, interpersonal violence is a huge issue for human beings. Yeah. Right? Like, if you've got someone, I hate to say this, I don't know a Welsh town. Like, I hate to sound naive about Wales, but London, whatever.
Barry Bados. Yeah, Barry Bados is a real place, okay?
Barry Bados? like a Spanish? That sounds Spanish. Bados? Yeah. Okay, well, Barry. It's actually Barry Bados, or is it Barry?
No, it's just Barry, yeah, but we call it Barry Bados.
Barry, okay.
Welcome to Barry Dice, we say. So.
Yeah, that's like Brisbane, Vegas,
Yeah, you got it.
Got it. Okay, so Barry. Now, if you look in Barry, how many people die per week in car accidents?
Oof. Right.
No idea?
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah. Or how many people a month?
Die? Probably none, I would have thought. Yeah.
5? Right. And then you look at how many a year. No, but the thing is, you don't know. But you know there are people dying.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right? Okay. If you had a serial killer in Barry, you would know the name of every person killed. Yeah. You would know the situation. Yeah. You'd be concerned about your own safety. Yeah. You would be having implemented plans for your family. Yeah. You'd be like, there would be outrage. Why? Because it's personal.
Of course, yeah.
If you just die driving down the road, this interpersonal violence is such a thing. Why do people suffer PTSD with interpersonal violence? Mm-hmm. It's like, why did they pick on me? Yeah. And the thing is, if you can think like them, you realize they didn't pick on you. They picked on you because you presented as a victim. Yeah. You had your hands full.
Yeah.
You're on crutches.
Yeah.
Like, they don't know who you are.
No.
You just presented as someone they could take, because funnily enough, it's not a fair contest.
Yeah.
It's not this is the thing with sport. You and I are training because we know that you and I are engaging in a competitive contest on this date. And you know what? If you're not fit for it, you're going to pull out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas combat,
I'm
walking around, my arm's in a sling.
Yeah.
Guess what? I'm already missing a wing. And you go, well, that's because I'm going to get you because I think I can beat you because your arm's in a sling. And by the way, there's two of us. And my mate's going to choke you from behind before you know anything about it.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
So you have got to be able to switch into a really odd place.
Yeah.
To stop that shit.
Well, that's
what combat's like that.
Yeah.
That's what combat is. I don't go into your house expecting you to grab me and start choking me.
Yeah.
I go into your house expecting if you come out and face me, I will shoot you in the face.
Yeah. I did feel
in a
that
battlefield scenario.
I mean, it's nothing like where you I suppose the same conceptually is the same, but I just thought, like martial arts, you kind of, you buy into this. It's going to make me a better person. You know, I can walk away. I can be the better person when I walk away from fights, and all that did was made me more vulnerable, because the actual understanding of being in a real fight is a lot more dangerous as an adult than it is as kids. And most people take their kind of childhood experiences into their adulthood, don't they? You know. And when I'm at a bar, or someone says something they don't like who I am or whatever, or something I've said, and they go, "Come on, let's out for a fight." I go, "All right then," and they go outside. I buy myself another beer, but I know if they're out there later, that I'm gonna have to deal with that, you know, and I have options. And you
know the most dangerous person that you would have met at that bar?
Yeah,
is the guy that said nothing and waited for you.
Yeah, exactly.
And waited for you in the shadows.
Yeah.
Where there was no cameras because he wanted to do real harm to you.
Yeah.
People just don't get it. Yeah. They do not get the danger that they're potentially in. And one of the greatest things, two things that I think, one that I think lacks in martial arts is martial strategy, right? Tactics. Let's say tactics.
Yeah.
Lacks. Yeah. Right. The second thing, modern martial arts, I should say, right? Now, the second thing that is good in martial arts is reiho, which is etiquette. Learn to say, "No worries, mate. Thanks, mate. Cheers, mate."
Yeah.
I'll even do that. And if I need to say, what's the concept? I am sometimes that my brain is in a weird place. Sometimes my brain thinks like the evil bastard that people want to protect themselves from.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I want you to be
totally understand what they're
such a good guy.
Yeah.
So you go, well, this guy's okay, but maybe I'm not.
Yeah.
That's excuse me. That's what it costs nothing to be a polite person.
No.
So martial arts teaching you to say, "I'm sorry, mate," is that you may just find that you just said sorry to someone who's a very nasty individual that's got these weird old values that just decided you said sorry. So guess what? You're not going to get killed tonight.
Yeah.
And you didn't even know that you lived tonight because you just went, "You know what? I bumped into a guy. I don't need to sit there and posture up. Sorry, mate.
Yeah.
Hey, no worries." And it's just like,
I
went for a run. I went for a run in Fayetteville, which is in the United States, right?
Yeah.
Now, I was in an area that was a very strong black area.
Yeah.
No idea. I'm Australian. We were over there to work with. We're staying at Fort Bragg, doing stuff at Fort Bragg. We're just at, we get a hotel. We don't know what the hell, and we don't think anything of it, all the people at the hotel are black and everything are like, "Hey, g'day, how are you?" That's not a knife, all this sort of stuff. We're like, "G'day, mate," So we're doing all this piece. We've gone for a jog because, no worries. And this guy's there and he's just like, the car goes past and said, "Boys, you don't run around here," and just drove off. And we're like, "What is that all about?" And then we're jogging along and the guy yells out, "What are you boys doing here?" And he's literally got himself, could only see half his body. I guarantee he had a firearm.
Yeah.
And he's just looking at us like ready to go. And it's just like, mate, you couldn't hear a stronger Aussie accent. G'day, mate. What's up, mate? You know, are we in the wrong? Oh, you guys are, yeah. No, you don't want to be around. Now they're trying to help us. You don't want to be around here because of,
right. Okay.
Oh, okay, mate. Now
that's the connection language, right?
Now, where the thing is, we're special forces guys.
Yeah.
We could sit there and be dicks and go, "Fuck you."
Yeah.
You know who we are.
Yeah.
And that's what young guys like. This is the thing, when you let it be ego and not be tactically smart.
Yeah.
And the thing is, why am I acting like that? Well, I'm not on a battlefield. I don't have a job that needs to enforce something. I don't have any firearms on me. It's being smart.
Yeah.
So a little bit of Rayho, a little bit of etiquette,
a
little bit of smarts, tactics, and
Yeah.
we're out.
Yeah.
That is, do you know what we just did? Self-defense.
Exactly.
That was self-defense. Because what's the end state of self-defense?
Yeah.
Defending yourself.
Yeah.
Well, fucking getting there and going, oh, I'll take you on, mate. And all of a sudden we get shot.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Your self-defense fucked up.
Yeah.
Hey, mate. Hey, g'day, mate. No worries. Oh, self-defense.
Well, my first rule of self-defense is take away fairness. Because that's my go-to every time. It spikes something inside me. It makes me grit my teeth. And this is my first. I've got some questions here, right? Some really reasonably fast. We'll start with a
That's what we're here for.
Right? Have you got a scar, right, where you did something wrong in a self-defense situation?
Yep.
Anything you can show on camera?
Just my ear.
Is it?
I've got a big chunk out of my ear.
What did you do wrong?
So, well, I didn't see the guy punch me from behind.
I'm going to match you one for that. Look at that. I don't know if you can see it. But,
bingo.
Yeah. So,
and from behind.
Yeah.
From behind.
Because I tell you, mine was a quick one. I thought I was like the shit. And I took on a couple of people thinking, and I got that. 3 days later, I go to college and I'm talking to someone. He runs up behind me with a handmade knuckle duster. Pop. Split my back and my head open. And I tell you the thing, to these days, I've got other ones here. But if I hadn't dropped my chin and took it there instead of anywhere else, could have been a different thing altogether. But I just think what people don't realize is that it's not just about the situation at the time, is it? You know, there's always comeback, and that's the problem. But and you are, as far as I'm concerned, one of the toughest people now that I know. So I'll be telling people we're friends and we go way back and all those things. So give me one thing you're scared of. Whoa, see, that's a challenger one, isn't it?
No, there's a lot of things I'm scared of. No, not spiders. You know, I'd like to say that I am.
Yeah, you're Aussie, that's different.
We got spiders. Lots of spiders. I got one that tried to kill me. I almost lost my leg over that one. One thing I'm scared of. I'm scared of the world repeating history. I'm a great fan of history.
Right.
And I'm just, I've got children and I am scared of the world just repeating history and seeing my kids go off to war and just be killed in a peer-on-peer war. Yeah. So that's something that I just, knowing how bad war is.
Yeah. It's close to heart, right? Really
that's something that I'm scared of. Yeah.
Well, I was trying to make this a little bit more lighthearted.
Probably not the answer. Probably not the answer you're looking for. But
I was hoping you'd say something like, really, not like spiders, because you're in Australia. But so, right, okay. This one.
We're mates. We have drinks with spiders.
That's right.
We have a beer with spiders.
So, have you ever cried at a children's film, a kids' film? Admit it. I know you have. I reckon it's Dumbo or something. Lion King.
I don't know if I've cried as a film that's dedicated towards children.
Right.
Maybe, I can feel emotion. Look, I think if you want to get what pushes my buttons, it's more just children being hurt. Like, I'll tell you that one of the most emotional things was that English kid who got picked up by the two boys at the shopping centre, and just what was said that kid wanted his mum and they just stoned him. That breaks my heart. And in Afghanistan, trying to keep kids safe, that's, if you want to know what really hurts is just thinking about that, just that poor little, that's the thing. That's, so it's more that, that's the stuff.
You can see, you've got a very tactical mind, and I'm not trying to make you cry, I promise. It was just...
No problem at all. If you can make me cry, power to you.
I'll keep going then. This is a much bigger list now. Right.
Okay.
Rugby or Aussie rules football? Which was better?
Okay, well, I was born in Victoria, and that's like being born an Irishman, like when it comes to Gaelic football,
Right, yeah.
So I was born in Victoria, so I should say Aussie rules football.
Yeah.
But I never really took to the game. I even played one season. It was not my thing.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about rugby. We were very isolated. So it was Aussie rules footy in Victoria and the rest of the country, New South Wales, Queensland. Yeah. But I love rugby union. Love rugby union.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great game. And second to that would be, I hate to say it, would be American football. So
really?
That's
wow. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've watched a few games of American football and the tactics. I think the tactics, I just love the detail of tactics. There's not much going on in between, like boom, stop. But when you got good commentators and you start to understand the game, I really enjoy the tactics, I guess.
Let's go.
Rugby union.
Well, union. That's if you don't know anything about Wales, that's our game. Rugby is our game.
Yeah, rugby's your game. I actually watched your team play Canada at the World Cup in Australia.
Wow.
So I went and watched, I watched two games live. I watched New Zealand play New Zealand play Italy. Yeah. And the only person on the Italian team that got a try was a expat from New Zealand. Yeah. And I watched,
that's what happens,
and I watched Wales play Canada, and I'm pretty sure you guys won.
Yeah, we did all right. I think like the thing with rugby,
you got a very strong team.
We got a good
not
team.
like us, mate.
Yeah.
It used to be the Southern Hemisphere dominated either All Blacks, Wallabies, or Springbok, and now everyone's paid for our coaches, and you're all smashing us. Everyone's smashing us. It's the saddest day ever watching England smash Australia at the World Cup.
It's the sad thing is we all moan about losing to England, so this is a world thing. It's very bad, and I hate this. I don't. I love it.
What's with the British Lions? What is with that? Because that's what Wales, England.
Yeah, it's basically
Scotland and Ireland.
Yeah. So
why can't we put an Anzac team together and have Australia and New Zealand? Why can't we have Anzacs?
Mate, that's just cheating. Come on, that's just cheating.
I'm sitting there watching this team going, this is like 4 international teams joined together. What's with this?
Well, I say when we watch the Six Nations, and that's my favourite time of year. And if you're ever in the UK, come over, we'll go and watch a game.
Oh yeah, you might invite me to a seminar. I'll come on over.
Well, this is what it's all about. COVID-19 has been a great time to connect with people. But we watch all the games, the Welsh. So we turn up to the Welsh games with a Welsh shirt on, right? And then say England are playing Scotland, then we go with a Scottish shirt on. And if England play,
you sound like Australia. Yeah, we're all the same. Whoever beats the English, that's it. Yeah, we're all the same. Us colonials are exactly the same, mate.
So in the UK, I'm not sure how many people you know in the UK, but is there anybody in the UK do you respect from the martial arts world, or as a fighter, or anything like
that? I'd say one of your, very prominent person from the UK would be Neil Adams.
Yeah.
Like you got very good judoka. Like, it's the UK's really turned, and you've turned all your sports around. Like, somewhere they just decided, I guess, that it wasn't funny anymore losing to these bloody colonial nations and stuff. Yeah. And it's been like, come on, can we start winning? So, and, the judo program and all that, that's a massive thing to turn that around. And I think Neil Adams, I just love his passion for his martial art. And the thing is, he's also crosses boundaries. You know, like he gets involved with everyone, and you know, he's a great advocate and a great representative of the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
I say United Kingdom because I always see him wearing, you know, the Union Jack.
Yeah.
And of judo, of martial arts. So for me, but you've got other people too. You've got judo. You've got a strong history of great judo.
I mean, that's why I started in judo.
I've got books over here written by a lot of British judoka.
Yeah.
A couple of books, Carters and stuff like that, written by British judoka. And you. So I'd say for me, when I think of the English, I'd say judo is the most prominent thing when I think of the English. I think you've got a very strong judo back there.
Right. And on a bit of a random note, this is very controversial. I'm not sure whether you'll be answering this one, but it's what do you think of pineapple on
love
pizza?
Controversy. I love pineapple on pizza.
Yay!
I don't understand what the issue with that is. That's called a Hawaiian pizza here in Australia. I love it.
But
pineapple and good tiny little cut up bits of bacon that are just almost burnt.
Yeah.
And just love it.
We say about this kind of stereotyping, so not doing racist, but barbecues, right? Barbecues, or if you're I'm into quite a lot of Japanese sort of culture stuff and food. So barbecue or sushi house, which one for you? Barbecue or sushi house? You're going to be rejected by your nation. I knew it. Yes.
Sushi. I love sushi.
Right, and I'm going to try something new because quite a lot of people are doing interviews and they are taking some of my ideas. So I'm wondering if they'll copy this one as well. So I've got something to play music-wise. I'm not sure if you can hear it.
Let me guess. Was it I Come From the Land Down Under?
No.
Is it Jean-Claude Van Damme or something like that?
It was. See? Amazing. So I was hoping to play a few films.
I thought anything that had brilliant lines like "Final Catch" had to be Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Sorry for the noise. Then I'm surrounded by kids' toys.
No, that's no worries. That's fine.
My daughter's that's her cage, right? So I'm bringing her up into MMA from her. She's 1 year old, and she's got a nice.
Teach her how to work off the cage, get back on her feet, things like that. How to do a naked strangle on a teddy bear. That's it. Perfect.
That's right. Yeah, bounce off the elbows. So it's been great to meet with you, and lots of interesting stuff that you're saying. And talking about seminars, definitely we try to put one on. Obviously, there's no dates in anybody's diaries at the minute, so we're definitely something that we want to do. But it's been fantastic. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much.
Superstar.
Take care.
1 second.
See you, mate.
Jungle.